Imagine standing alone on a sheer granite precipice, the wind howling around you, slicing through your clothes like a knife. Your hands tremble not just from cold, but from the sheer weight of the unknown that looms over you, the precipice, the storm, and the endless expanse of inky sky threatening to unleash its fury. Tonight, we are looking at a story of human endurance against the relentless forces of nature, a tale set against the backdrop of the 1936 north face of a towering granite peak. It is here, in this unforgiving environment, that a team of climbers faced their most harrowing test, battling not only towering cliffs, but also the elements that would soon turn from adversary to executioner. The stakes were high, as the merciless weather would expose their limitations and challenge their very resolve. In the shadow of this great mountain, climbers thrust themselves into a world where each gust of wind is laden with danger, and every slip threatens to plunge them into the abyss. The atmosphere is thick with tension. The air crackles with the unspoken acknowledgement of the risks they face. Inside their minds, hope intertwines with dread as they inch closer to their goal, unaware of the fierce storm that is gathering strength above them. This is the story of Stormbound, the 1936 North Face exposure. Here, we will uncover the stark reality of survival, the harshness of human endeavor against an unforgiving backdrop, and the grim revelations that emerge when man confronts the raw power of nature. Chapter 1. The Climbing Party. The sun rises slowly over the jagged peaks of the north face, casting light across the snow-draped rock. Each ray is met with a chill that seeps into the bones. Beneath the breathtaking beauty, danger lies coiled like a predator in the underbrush. The seasoned climbers gather at the base, their breath visible in the frigid air. Each inhalation mingles with the scent of ice and the promise of adventure. There is a shared sense of purpose among them, a deep camaraderie forged over countless ascents. They prepare their gear methodically, ice axes glinting under the waning light. As they check their ropes, there's an unspoken agreement that words are unnecessary. The gravity of their task looms before them. The North Face is not kind to the unwary, and today's ascent demands respect. A ridge of clouds begins to creep along the horizon, almost imperceptibly at first. The group starts their climb, anchored by trust in one another. Each step crunches against hardened snow, an eerie rhythm that breaks the silence. They scale upward, hands brushing against the coarse stone, feeling its coldness strike a jolt through their fingertips. Their bodies are pushed against the unforgiving mountain, muscles taut and straining, but resolute. As they ascend, time flows differently in this frozen realm. Minutes expand into hours. The world narrows, reduced to the sounds of steel striking ice and the labored whispers of breath. With each higher step, the air thins, making their lungs burn, and yet they press on. The summit calls. Nearby, the trees stand as silent witnesses. Gnarled branches quiver under the weight of snow. The atmosphere feels heavy, pregnant with an unspoken anticipation. The wind begins to stir. It coils around them, a thin, cold breath that hints at a gathering storm. One climber pauses, glancing up, scanning the sky with a knot of apprehension forming in his stomach. The clouds deepen, casting shadows over their route, but he shakes it off, focusing instead on the camaraderie. They laugh quietly, a fleeting moment of warmth amid the encroaching cold. Above them, the peak rises like a frozen sentinel. Each hold becomes a negotiation between strength and fatigue. They are aware of the risk. They have trained for this, yet the mountain seems to change beneath them. A sense of unease begins to settle in their chests, but they forge ahead, driven by ambition and resilience. Gradually the wind picks up, shifting from a whisper to a howl. Snow flurries whirl like restless spirits, teasing at their gear and breath. The visibility lessens, the world blurring into shades of white and grey. The climbers huddle closer, sharing quick glances that silently communicate their resolve. But as they climb higher, the beauty begins to fade. The allure of the mountain mutates into something foreboding. One climber recalls a tale, a distant memory of another party lost to the north face. He shakes his head, pushing the thought away. A heavy silence descends, broken only by the sound of the wind. It now howls like something alive, hungry. The snow begins to fall more heavily, obscuring their footholds. They're battling not just the ascent, but the growing tempest around them. The snow turns treacherous, slick with the promise of a storm. As they round a crag, a sharp wind slices through them. Each gust feels like knives against their exposed skin, chilling this blood in their veins. Their thoughts shift from ambition to survival. The lead climber takes a moment to assess the situation. The ascent is steep, but they have come too far to turn back. A part of him feels the gravity of the decision hanging in the air, a tension that knots in his stomach. His heart pounds against the chill of his chest, but he gives the signal. They push onward. With every handhold, every step, they're met with an unyielding resolve from the mountain. But far above, a darker gravity emerges. The clouds twist ominously, blackened and swollen. It is not just the chill that demands attention, but a foreboding sense that something is amiss. Then, a crack echoes through the silence. Not the simple sound of rock settling, but a deep, resonating warning. It bounces around them, ricocheting off the stone like a death knell. They stop, eyes widening in realization. The mountain stirs, and they are at its mercy. The lead climber's pulse quickens. What was once ambition shifts into raw survival. The storm, now unleashed, roars above, and their window of safety closes tightly. He feels the weight of every decision heavy on his shoulders, each step echoing a new uncertainty. They turn, but the path behind them is already obscured by advancing snow. It tugs at the edges of their consciousness. This is the moment where expedience and caution collide. As the first snowflakes settle on their brows, another sound joins the wind's lament, a distant rumble that grows louder, like the heartbeat of the mountain awakening. It resonates in their bones, urging them to confront the inevitable. In that moment, the group holds their breath together. They know they must move forward, but the environment screams at them to retreat. The tension thickens, palpable, looming. They glance at one another, the reality settling heavy like the snowflakes on their shoulders. Each knows they tread a precarious path. The storm's embrace is tightening, inviting them deeper into its eerie clutches. Before we descend further into the dark, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. You won't want to face the rest of this journey alone. And before we continue, drop a comment and tell me where in the world you are watching from tonight. Knowing you are out there, somewhere in the dark, makes this history feel all the more alive. Chapter 2. Weather Warnings Ignored. The sun hangs low in the sky, casting long shadows across the rugged terrain. The climbers press onward, their spirits buoyed by what they believe is a manageable ascent. There is a certain resolve in their stride, a collective optimism that permeates the group. They have trained for months, each step echoing a shared commitment to conquer the north face. Yet whispers swirl amid the sound of crunching snow underfoot. The weather, once merely a backdrop to their ambition, begins to command attention. A local guide had warned them earlier. He described the swift changes in climate, how nature in these mountains often reveals its fangs without warning. But the climbers, buoyed by adrenaline and ambition, dismiss his caution as overzealous. As they continue, the temperature dips. It sinks further, creeping into their bones. The chill slices through their jackets, and they begin to sense the weight of their decisions. Yet still, they climb, convinced their physical prowess will carry them. The trail narrows, flanked by towering cliffs, the air dense with anticipation. It grows quieter. The wind, which had howled just moments before, now holds its breath. The climbers exchange glances, some feigning bravery, others betraying a flicker of doubt. They pause briefly, huddled against the creeping cold. One climber rummages through their gear, producing a map, but as he spreads it out, the sturdy paper crackles in the frigid air. He points to their progress, tracing a line toward their destination. A murmur of agreement rustles through the group. They can make it. They must make it. But all around them the mountains provide warning signs. The clouds, once sparse and soft, now loom ominously above. Heavy dark formations swirl and churn, ominously blotting out the fading sunlight. Tips of peaks become engulfed in grey, almost as if the mountain itself is drawing up a shroud. Despite these signs, the climbers press on. They slip into a rhythm, each step methodical and measured. The sound of their breathing joins the muted thud of boots against snow. They may not notice yet, but the once predictable terrain is shifting beneath their feet. The snow is heavier, the snowpack increasingly unstable. A faint sound emerges, soft at first. It merges with the wind, a low whisper interjected by the clamour of their ambitions. It is the voice of nature, the harbinger of the storm approaching. The air thickens with an ominous stillness, the type that heralds something formidable. They do not hear it, not yet. Further up, a few of the climbers exchange encouraging words, unknowing of the tempest that is gathering strength. Their laughter rings hollow against the backdrop of an increasingly sombre environment. It is a veil of comfort that will soon be ripped away. As they reach a narrow ledge, the wind shifts sharply. It sends a shiver through the air, sharp as a blade. They stop once more, and for a fraction of a moment they glance at one another. An unspoken question hangs. Should they press on? A gnawing doubt creeps in, but ambition squashes it beneath an avalanche of dreams. The sun, almost seemingly complacent moments ago, hangs low, fighting against the encroaching darkness. And with it, the temperature plummets further. The thrill of the ascent turns into a dull throb, their faces slowly turning crimson with the biting cold. Then, there is the unmistakable drop in pressure. It is subtle but suffocating. One climber instinctively touches his ear to check for a pop. The group, still oblivious, shifts their focus to the rocky faces ahead. Ignoring nature's tirade, they rally behind optimism. Time slips away as they ascend, the journey a collective blur. Even as the hints of serious weather deepen, there is no turning back. Back to what? The warmth of a cozy cabin, the certainty of stability. No. Each climber feels the draw of the mountain clash against the growing unease that lingers in the back of their minds. Then it lands, the first drops of what would become freezing rain. They sound like distant whispers, echoing against their helmets. Each drop creates an eerie harmony, a percussive reminder of what lies ahead. The shadows stretch longer now, folding into one another as the sun succumbs to the dark. The texture of the terrain morphs. It turns treacherous. The once firm trail becomes slick. Each step is measured and cautious. Yet the climbers move ahead, driven by a shared determination. It's as if they are marching towards an inevitable fate, and within their collective resolve, there's a layer of denial, a quiet unwillingness to heed the warnings brushed against their senses. They said we could do it, one climber murmurs, thoughts battling against the reality around them. We're almost there. Yet the looming clouds gather thicker, swirling like a great beast ready to pounce. The temperature has dropped even more, the ink in their journals now frozen solid, like their faith in favourable conditions. Without their awareness, the storm unfurls quietly, methodically, cruelly patient. The first gusts of wind cut through the air, biting into their cheeks, frigid like daggers. There is no doubt left among them. They realize, with weight behind every heartbeat, that the storm has arrived. The excitement of the climb begins to dissolve, replaced by a creeping dread that starts to seep through to the surface of their resolve. Eyes dart around, some faces pale with the realization that nature, once merely a gentle presence, has become a fierce adversary. And still, they move. Each step forward is met with a resistance that grows stronger. Somewhere, deep in the folds of white obscuring the trail, hope begins to unravel as they ascend. The reality of their isolation bears down upon them, cold, unyielding, unrelenting. A remote peak awaits, yet it feels distant, unattainable. As the last moments of light wane, a collective understanding sinks in like the chill. Ignoring the storm was not merely an oversight. It has become a turning point. The weather, once a mere backdrop to their aspirations, is now the defining force of their journey. With the shadows stretching and the storm unleashing its fury, the realization hits. They are bound now, tethered to the mountain, caught in the unforgiving embrace of nature's might. The storm does not ask for permission. It takes hold of them. And at that moment, as the snow begins to fall with a ferocity they could not anticipate, they stand on the precipice of a decision that will test their very limits. The gravity of their choices weighs heavier with each breath, and they realize, with chilling clarity, they may have underestimated the mountain, and certainly the storm. Chapter 3. The Storm Strikes. The serenity of the morning is deceptive. A gentle breeze flutters through the air, whispering promises of a perfect day for climbing. The sun rises slowly, illuminating the north face with a radiant glow. It bathes the rocky surfaces in golden light, creating a scene that feels almost idyllic. But nature is fickle, and the tranquility is short-lived. Dark clouds loom on the horizon, creeping in like shadows over the blue sky. There is an unsettling chill that begins to settle over the climbers. It seeps into their bones, a prelude to something more sinister. The first gust of wind carries with it a warning. It is sharper now, tugging at their gear and testing their resolve. A light sleet begins to fall, the tiny pellets stinging their faces like needles. The temperature drops suddenly, a brutal descent that freezes every thought in their minds. The ink in their journals smears, rendering notes illegible. They exchange glances, a mix of uncertainty and urgency flashing across their faces. Each climber knows that the weather can change rapidly in the mountains, but they had hoped for more time to secure their positions, to find a safe place to rest. The light-hearted banter that had filled the morning air goes silent. The wind howls, louder now, almost like a living thing. It billows against the rock face, sending loose stones tumbling down in a cascade of sound. Awareness dawns on them all. They recognize the gravity of the situation. What began as an ascent has morphed into a desperate scramble for safety. The sleet intensifies, the ice bits hitting their skin with sharp stinging. Each step becomes labored as the ground underfoot turns slick with frost. Eyes squint against the piercing onslaught. Visibility diminishes as the storm gains ferocity. They can barely see beyond a few meters, the world around them becoming a blur of grey and white. A sense of isolation creeps in, chilling them more than the cold air ever could. The camaraderie shared just hours ago feels distant, replaced by an urgency that binds them together in fear. They hasten toward a narrow overhang, hoping for refuge from the relentless wind. The sheer rock looms above them, providing some barrier against the elements. But the storm shows no mercy. It sweeps over them with unyielding force. Huddled together, they catch their breath, their hearts racing from the sudden shift. The sound of the wind becomes a deafening roar. It drowns out their thoughts, drowning out reason. As the sleet falls heavier, the reality of their situation sets in. The temperature continues to plummet, reaching a biting cold that seeps through their clothing. Fingers become numb as they grip their gear tightly. One climber pulls out a thermos, hoping to find warmth, but the liquid inside has begun to freeze. No warmth comes, only despair. They glance at one another, each man reading the same unspoken fear in the other's eyes. What felt like a day of promise has turned into a fight for survival. The realization grows heavier. They are not merely climbing mountains, they are wrestling against nature itself. The wind shrieks, a fierce reminder of their vulnerability. What could have been an ascent up the north face has now become the metaphorical descent into chaos. The climbers rally momentarily, strategizing, calling out directions for the best path back down. Yet every option collapses under the pressure of the storm. The mountain feels alive, shifting and groaning beneath their feet. With each passing minute, the storm worsens. They lose sight of the safety of their previous positions. The ice around them turns treacherous, pulling at their footing and taunting their resolve. The overwhelming weight of the elements bears. Down, heavier than the packs strapped to their backs. Desperation grips their hearts. They need to move, but where? It becomes painfully clear they can no longer cling to the hope of a simple ascent. They shuffle sideways, seeking to navigate back along the path, but the storm howls in protest, driving the sleet into them in a frigid rage. Each gust pushes them toward the edge, threatening to send them sprawling over the precipice. Shouts are swallowed by wind. The frigid air makes their breath come in laboured pants, visible as clouds of vapour that swirl and dissipate into the storm. The silence of deep worry envelops them, punctuated only by the sound of ice rattling against the stone. Suddenly, one climber stumbles, losing his footing on the icy surface. Time stretches in that moment. All eyes turn in horror as he slips, arms flailing. A chain reaction is set off. Panic surges through the group. But they have no time to react, no opportunity to save him as the storm continues, to rage. The very rock they have relied on for stability feels like it might betray them at any moment. The ground shifts beneath their feet, an ominous foreboding that sends chills deeper than the frigid air. In the turmoil, they are left with a grim realization. The mountain is not their ally today. Hope is fading with each gust of wind. The storm has struck with severity they could not have prepared for. This is no longer a routine climb. It is an encounter with the unyielding force of nature itself. Each of them must confront not just the elements, but their own limitations. As they gather their resolve, a chilling thought solidifies in the silence. The weather will not relent. There is no immediate way down. Only uncertainty lies ahead, and in that uncertainty, the harrowing question arises: how long can they survive against the storm? The answer remains just beyond their grasp, lost in the chaotic dance of nature. But for now, they press on, driven by instinct and fear. Their journey through the storm has just begun. The wind howls across the granite face of the mountain. Each gust carries the sharp bite of ice, slicing through the heavy fabric of their jackets. The snow swirls around them, enveloping the group in a disorienting white haze. Shadows dance as the daylight begins to fade, the sun retreating behind a wall of tumultuous clouds. Suspended high above the ground, Edward finds himself dangling helplessly. His body hangs in a precarious position, entangled in the ropes that should have secured him to the mountain. The rock is slick with ice, each glistening surface mocking his attempts to free himself. With each passing moment, the fear begins to settle in his chest like a heavy stone. He can't pull himself up. The knot is too tight against his harness. Panic prickles along his spine as he glances down, the drop a sheer cascade of unforgiving rock and deep snow below. "Help!" he calls out, voice swallowed by the roar of the Ichthyer storm. It feels futile, lost amidst the howl. His breath forms mist in the frigid air, ghostly wisps that vanish into the white chaos around him. About 20 feet above him, his team, a group of determined climbers, struggles to assess the best course of action. The weight of the decision falls heavily upon them. They know time is slipping away, like grains of sand through their fingers. Their shouts mingle with the wind, urgent yet uncertain. Each member grapples with his own dread, eyes darting across the icy terrain. With each glance at Edward, the gravity of their situation deepens. He is suspended in peril, a living testament to the mountain's indifference. The temperature continues to plummet. They cannot afford to linger. Upward, the storm grows fiercer, snowflakes transforming into menacing shards of ice. The visibility diminishes further. It's as if the mountain has become a fragmented world, one where sound barely carries and time loses its meaning. Stranded on that vertical plane of uncertainty, Edward feels the constraints of his situation, the frayed ropes against his skin, the crunch of shoes on ice, the distant howling of the storm. "Do you see him?" a voice calls out, slicing through Edward's muddled thoughts. The frustration is palpable, mixing with the urgency of the moment. It swells and fades, much like the dying light. Edward struggles against the restraints, his body weak from exertion and the numbing cold. He can feel the icy tendrils prick against his skin, a reminder that warmth is fleeting here. Each attempt to twist or turn is met with resistance, and his heart races as he considers the climbing gear that should be his salvation. His panting breath fogs the air. It's a shallow rhythm, the kind that arises in moments of desperation. He knows that they cannot waste time, yet the higher they climb, the more perilous their movements become. Soon, they must confront the inescapable truth. Time is no longer on their side. Each second stretches into an eternity. The team exchanges anxious glances, weighing options. The thought of abandoning one of their own sends a chill deeper than the frigid air. They must work together, yet the weight of the storm is unbearable. The slate-grey sky looms above, brooding and oppressive. Dark clouds roll closer to the mountain, resonating with a low, ominous rumble. The white noise of the wind becomes a cacophony, pressing against their ears, muffling reason with each passing moment. One climber steps forward. It is Nathan. He readies himself to secure a line from above, his hands trembling slightly from cold and fear. He searches for any point of contact, any promise of safety in the tumult. Yet each movement feels stunted, as if the mountain itself warns against their futile efforts. Just below, Edward's pleas grow more frantic. He feels the frost creeping into his very bones. Overhead, the team is burdened by the weight of his cries, echoing hauntingly against the rock face. "There must be a way," Edward shouts. Each word is laced with desperation, hitting the ears of his comrades like arrows, piercing through their hearts. They hear the urgency, the tremble in his voice. But the stakes are impossibly high. As Nathan begins to move, he spots a ledge, a possible outpost in this merciless landscape. With hope igniting a flicker of determination within him, he calls down to his teammate. The plan is simple: ascend to the ledge, then stabilize the line so they can pull Edward up to safety. But even as he formulates this, doubts creep in. The wind howls louder, almost mocking their fragile hopes. Visibility diminishes rapidly. Each snowflake seems to multiply, obscuring everything they once thought they knew about climbing this mountain. Edward can feel time slipping through his grasp. Each breath is laborious, the icy air clawing at his throat, the harsh reality of his condition bearing down on him. The thought of remaining, suspended, able to see the world, but unable to grasp it, becomes an overwhelming dread. His gaze shifts from the chaotic flurry to the grey horizon. He can't tell where the solid rock ends and the abyss begins. Nathan reaches the ledge, gasping as he clutches the icy rock, fingers searching for purchase on the slick surface. Each grasp feels like a gamble. Will it hold? Will they be able to save Edward, or will the mountain's fickle nature twist their fate? He secures himself at the edge, eyes narrowing against the wind. He signals down, but the storm swallows his movements. Panic seeps from Edward's core, a fear that constricts tightens like a noose. Every minute spent hanging in the void layers on uncertainty. Each time the rope shifts, the knot digs into his harness, a cruel reminder that he is literally bound to this moment, this very mountain. Then, as if to seal their fate, a vicious gust roars across the ledge, sending a plume of powdery snow cascading down. The icy mist envelops Edward, cloaking his vision. Silence stretches within the roar. The world around him feels tenuous, as if it could shatter at any moment. And then he sees it, a shadow in the distance, a figure moving against the storm. His heart races anew. Is it help coming to free him? Or the mountain itself shifting beneath him, warning him of the inevitability of his fall? The question hangs heavy in the air, leading to a chilling realization, echoing in the throbbing pulse of their struggles. He is not just suspended in air, he is suspended in peril. The bite of fear and despair sinks deeper with each silent moment. Now, more than ever, time is of the essence, and each second draws them closer to an unknown fate. Each spiraling flake of snow brings them closer to a breaking point. Everything hangs precariously in the balance. Chapter 5. Equipment failures. The wind howls through the jagged peaks of the north face, a relentless agent of chaos. Snow whips across the slopes, cascading in blinding sheets. Each gust carries the penetrating chill, sinking into the bones of the climbers. They huddle together, trying to shield one another from the elements, but their bodies are slowly becoming heavy with fatigue. Ropes lay tangled at their feet, frayed from constant tension. Just days prior, they were confident in their gear, meticulously checked, each knot tied with precision. Now, those same ropes feel like thin strands barely holding back the weight of the world. A careful examination reveals worn fibers, threatening to give way under the pressure. As one climber pulls on a rope to test its strength, it snaps with a sound that echoes like a gunshot in the howling wind. They freeze, hearts racing, the reality of their situation sinking in. They cannot afford for anything else to fail. Ice crystals form with each exhalation, clouds of breath dissipating into the cold air. Fingers grow numb inside gloves, making it difficult to execute even the simplest of tasks. One by one, they check carabiners, attaching them to anchors buried deep within the snow. Some clip loudly, others simply refuse to close, the metal corroded from prolonged exposure to moisture. Desperation seeps into the atmosphere like the encroaching storm. Their minds flicker to alternatives, to makeshift solutions that will buy them time. Each climber relies on memories of training, days spent practicing on less unforgiving mountains. But now they face the bitter reality. Nature cares not for skill nor preparation. The team leader surveys their situation methodically. Finding a footing becomes more precarious as ice slicks over the rocky terrain. The storm does not relent. Visibility drops to mere feet, each flake of snow curtain-like, obscuring their view of the way ahead. It is cold, the temperature sinks, and their water bottles, filled just a few hours ago, threaten to yield only ice. Time blurs as they work, a silent countdown to critical failure. Metal on metal, the sounds of their equipment mingle with the howl of the wind. The echoes of clanking carabiners blend into a haunting symphony, one that carries the weight of their growing despair. They push further, driven by a faint glimmer of hope. They are climbers, and they will find a way. Yet with each step, they feel the cumulative toll of exhaustion. The storm roars louder, drowning out rational thought. One climber falters, boots slipping on an icy patch, and their heart sinks at the realization they are at the mercy of forces far beyond their control. An anchor pulls free unexpectedly, the metal grinding against the rocky surface as it fails. A murmur courses through the group. Faces grow pale. They trade worried glances, fear etched into their features. The churning snow seems to close in around them. It whispers of isolation, of abandonment, the very real possibility that they might not make it back home. They begin to lose precious items from their packs. A flask slips from fingers, rolling away, swallowed by deep drifts. With it goes their last source of warmth, a small supply of spirits, meant to sustain their spirits. Laughter turns into silence, and their internal turmoil intensifies. The elements stretch their resolve to the brink. They are layered heavily against the cold, but the weight of damp clothing clings to their bodies, making each movement feel like wading through thick sludge. Each climber's mind whirls, vacillating between the dreadful awareness of their diminishing resources and the hope for safe passage. If they can just press onward, surely they will find a way through this frozen hell. Fingers ache, they feel brittle. As they reach for another carabiner, it shifts in their grasp, unable to latch onto the jagged rock. Panic ekes in, but it is swallowed by the deep-seated. Understanding that panic leads to collapse. Thoughts converge. Safety protocols. What equipment must be prioritized? Where to place the next anchor? They feel the pressure mount nearly like the weight of the storm itself, bearing down upon their small, precarious existence. Time slips away, and suddenly it's evident. The sheer magnitude of the storm and their dwindling equipment's reliability are inextricably linked. Failure will follow failure, and hope will be diminished with each fraying strand. As they inch one step closer to a potential refuge, they find another anchor that no longer holds firm. With a sickening realization, the full breadth of their risk begins to feel truly monstrous. They brace against the fierce wind, knowing what lies ahead is not merely a climb, but a life-and-death battle with nature itself. The storm begins to howl even louder as they push onward, a fitting accomplice to their growing dread. Decision must be made. A pause could cost them everything, but the chance of not pausing could equally result in failure. As the ice forms thicker around them, a piercing crack shatters through the blizzard. One more anchor gives way, tumbling into the abyss below. The team stops, hearts collectively sinking as they come to a chilling realization. The bitter cold is pressing in, and their equipment is failing at an alarming rate. They cast wary gazes at each other, unsure how much longer they can hold on to hope in this unforgiving storm. The winds howl again, louder this time, bringing with it an unsettling understanding. They may be confronting not only their limits, but the very edge of survival itself. And as they stand there, breathless, with the roaring storm framing their fate, the realization settles in. Time is running out, and with each moment that passes, what little strength remains begins to dwindle. Chapter 6. Isolation and Desperation. The relentless wind howls through the narrow crevices of the mountain, an unyielding symphony of cold and despair. The climbers of the Grafton are ensnared in a frozen world, shrouded in white. Their hope of descent is dashed, the sun hidden behind roiling clouds, casting shadows on their eroding spirits. Each breath is laborious, accompanied by the stinging bite of the frost-laden air. In the frigid temperatures, it is -40 degrees now, and each exhalation turns to icy vapor, swirling around them like a ghostly mist. Fingers numb, they struggle to manipulate the equipment that once seemed so reliable. Now, the ice-clad tools feel foreign and unwieldy. One climber dangles precariously, suspended by a thin lifeline. His heart beats against his ribcage, yet a profound silence envelops him. Below, the yawning chasm of the mountain beckons, an abyss filled with the unknown, an echoing reminder of mortality. Even the wind does not dare to break this contemplative stillness. Isolation grips the group, a vice tightening around their throats, though they are but a few feet apart. An immeasurable gulf yawns between their hearts. Voices sound muffled, as if spoken from the depths of an ocean. Each member is locked in their thoughts, wrestling with the creeping dread that seeps into their bones. Food rations become a topic of morbid calculation. The meager supplies dwindle, and gnawing hunger joins the frostbite as their constant companions. An occasional glance is exchanged, full of meaning, yet unspoken. They measure their worth in calories, rationing every crumb as if it were precious gold. The sun remains absent, a distant memory suggesting warmth. Time blurs. It stretches into an endless stretch of fatigue and frustration. The light fades into the silence of a dreary grey. Another day in this stone prison, where the only witness to their plight is the mountain itself, an indifferent sentinel, watching as they unravel. Sleep eludes them, dangerous in its absence. Eyes grow heavy, yet the thought of closing them feels like a surrender. Each night is a restless battle against the cold and despair. Shadows flit in their peripheries, anxiety teased by the gnawing sound of ice shifting. Reality sharpens into focus after moments of silence. It is a profound moment when one climber, cheeks hollow and skin drawn tight, admits aloud what they've all feared. We are cut off. Help won't come. Still, the words hang heavy in the air, reverberating against the stone walls of the mountain. Morale fractures under the pressure of their situation. They look to one another, and uncertainty blooms like frost on a window pane. In their eyes, they search for reassurance. Instead, they find a mirror, reflecting the growing despair within themselves. In that suspended moment, vulnerability strikes. Each man contemplates survival differently, their individuality carved by their circumstances. The climber beneath, still hanging precariously, thinks of home, of warmth. He remembers the sweet scent of his partners, Embrace, now painfully distant. Tensions mount like the growing layers of snow around them. Small disagreements flare up over who should take the last bite of food, the rations becoming a battleground for unvoiced fears. Every argument is underpinned by the realization of their fragile existence. The wind shrieks with a cruel mocking, and the chilling truth sets in: time is not their ally. They are not just battling against the mountain, but also each other. Trust becomes a tenuous thing, a thread nearly frayed. One moment of weakness could unravel it. Even as day fades into the pitch of night, the darkness offers no solace. It is an oppressive weight, almost tangible. The climbers huddle close, encircling a flickering flame, fragile and fleeting. Shadows dance on the rock walls, a reminder of their isolation. There is a moment when laughter erupts, a desperate, jagged sound. It is derisive, but also forged by tension. A jest about their plight offered by one, met with a grimace from another. It sounds hollow and far too loud against the stillness, evoking echoes of shared memories that feel impossibly far away. Outside, as the wind continues to howl, its icy fingertips delve deeper into the cracks of their minds. They huddle in silence, each ruminating on pain and longing, their bodies exhausted, but their thoughts alert. The mountain, an immense titan, looms over them, a constant reminder of their predicament, their enslavement by nature's ruthless hand. Days stretch on with the stubbornness of winter. They speak of food in hushed tones now, the mere mention igniting pangs of pain in their bellies. Each rumble echoes with despair, reminding them of their dwindling supplies. Nothing can quench the gnawing hunger that deepens with each passing hour. A quiet horror seeps into their conversations. The question of what to do if the supplies run out becomes a spectre that hovers close. It breeds a paralyzing terror embedded within shadowy thoughts, the line between hope and despair blurring until they coexist in an agonizing dance. The breath of the mountain is relentless, and they remain ensnared in its icy grip. Hours bleed into one another, an unyielding rhythm of frost-laden air and biting wind. The line between day and night fades. They assemble once more, a circle of weary bodies. Someone suggests the impossible task of signaling for help, but the suggestion falls flat against harsh reality. Their voices grow faint, swallowed by the vastness of the mountain. It is a tragic notion, an act born of desperation and the instinct to survive. What they once believed would be a triumph has turned into a rehearsal of survival. Their thoughts drift, spiraling between desire and dread. There is no way to predict what will come next. Every moment is marked with uncertainty. As the tension rises, an unspoken acknowledgement passes between them. The rope holding the climber begins to slacken. They see him, a spectre in the abyss, knowing that each second that passes brings them closer to an unimaginable reckoning. With the wind howling in dismay, the grip of despair tightens around them. Isolation takes on a new meaning as they once again confront the depth of their endurance. The mountain remains indifferent, but within their hearts, doubt begins to bloom. The fear is palpable, a weight heavier than any snow draping the summit. And so, like a fading whisper into the howling void, the glimmer of hope begins to flicker, casting long, haunting shadows. This bleak reality surrounds them as they brace themselves for the bitter battle ahead. Will they find the strength to endure, or will the mountain claim another victim in its icy grip? The icy wind howls like a wounded animal, sweeping across the glacier. It carries with it the shiver of dread that sets into the bones of the climbers. Each gust penetrates their gear, chilling them to the core. Visibility has dropped to mere feet. The mountains loom like ancient sentinels, indifferent to their plight. Time blurs. Minutes stretch into an eternity. The storm continues its relentless assault. Snow falls heavy and dense, blanketing everything in a harsh white shroud. The climbers huddle together, bodies pressed as close as possible, seeking warmth in shared breath. But warmth eludes them. Nearby, one of the climbers, Mark, grows more frantic. His fingers tremble as he clutches the rope, knuckles stark white against the freezing air. The anchor point seems far too distant now. He tries to shout, but the wind swallows his voice, rendering his words into a whisper absorbed by the storm. Eyes dart around, searching for something, anything that resembles hope. Their once solid plans to coordinate a rescue feel as distant as the summits, lost in the swirling snow. They understand their isolation more deeply now, the encroaching realization that the mountain is not just a challenge, but a formidable adversary. The sound of a snap, a rope fraying, under stress, sends a jolt through their ranks. Mark tightens his grip, retreating inward, the primal fear of losing a teammate clawing at his throat. The rope is an umbilical cord to survival, and with each passing moment, it seems to weaken. In the center of the group, Fiona shivers, not just from the cold, but from the growing anxiety that pulses through her. She attempts to rally her thoughts, to articulate a plan. Yet every suggestion feels futile, lost in the cacophony of wind and swirling snow. She looks into the eyes of her companions. They share the same thin veil of desperation. The sky looms, a heavy grey void. The world outside their huddle is both wild and dark. Time drags, the clock hands turning slowly in their minds. They can hardly distinguish past from present. How long have they been stranded? Suddenly, Mark's breath catches. He gestures toward the edge of their shelter, where a flicker of movement persists. A slight figure, suspended on the ridge above, is barely visible. It's Liam, the last climber, still clinging to the rock face, struggling to maintain his grip. "Can you hear me, Liam?" Fiona shouts, bracing against the wind, her voice hoarse with apprehension. The silence that follows stretches out painfully. Liam does not respond. He remains suspended, caught in a tableau of struggle and desperation. With every moment, the surface tension of their situation changes, becoming dense with panic and uncertainty. They must make a decision. They must act. But the storm rages on, forbidding any rational thought. Mark steps forward, driven by urgency. He knows they should send a line, but the winds howl back, warning against the risk of an errant movement. His anxious mind races. With trembling hands, he begins to secure the rope, twisting it around the anchor. The knot feels defiant against the elements, yet it offers little comfort against the impending dread of failure. "Wait," Fiona whispers, an edge of fear in her voice. "We need to come up with a plan." But Mark is already moving. The urgency overrides caution. The desperation to save a teammate outweighs the weight of reason. He shouts out again, a raw plea against the roaring tempest. More snow falls, heavy and unforgiving. It blurs the sight, blinding them to the tangled rope and their own fraught movements. They know the risk, yet the thought of abandonment propels them into action. Their minds teeter on the brink of a precipice, life or death. The moment hangs thick, heavy with unspoken words. What if they make the wrong choice? They are racing against the inevitable now, each heartbeat a countdown echoing in the silence that follows their decisions. Yet Mark clings to hope, a foreign notion in this atmosphere so saturated with despair. The storm's fury intensifies, a reminder of their limitations. An unrelenting chase for survival courses through their veins. They can hear the howling winds below, a reminder that nature is indifferent, relentless. They lower the rope. It unfurls into the abyss, hanging in the void like a lifeline thrown into darkness. Mark watches with bated breath, heart hammering. The end of the rope vanishes into the snowy haze where Liam hangs precariously. When they check for movement, Liam's figure sways, but not towards the rope. He is slipping. Gravity beckons with a cold caress. "Liam!" The collective voice rises over the wind. A wild hope unfurls within their chests, but it comes crashing down almost instantly. The moments stretch thin, weighted with fear as they wait for any sign of response that doesn't come. The light in the gloomy atmosphere is muted, casting an unsettling glow over their frantic efforts. As Mark's resolve falters, guilt gnaws at him. He had chosen action over caution, and now... A sudden gust flares, enveloping everything in a furious whiteout. They can no longer see Liam or the rope, just a deafening silence that envelops them. Panic surges as the storm howls, clamoring for their attention. Fiona stares into the void, a growing sense of despair wrapping around her like a vice. The moments pass. Loneliness creeps in, pressing its cold fingers against her heart. The insurmountable weight of their choices presses heavily downwards. The screaming wind stirs thoughts of what might happen next. Desperation leads them toward rash conclusions. Dehydration, exhaustion, the bitter taste of fear coats their throats. Mark breaks the fragile stillness. "We have to get him down." His voice cuts through the storm, a desperate whisper against the chaos. But how? Shivers run down their spines as the storm rages on. Each moment spills into the next, like sand through an hourglass. The storm seems to mock their urgency, as if time itself is conspiring against them. With jaws clenched, they confront the bleak truth. Every second counts, and they spiral deeper into a realm of panic. Their minds race, navigating the thin line between hope and despair. As the winds howl louder, drowning out their fears, it becomes evident that something must give way. A decision has to be made. Just then, a sudden silence falls, like the eye of the storm. In that chilling pause, a single thought crystallizes amidst the frantic noise. They must face the consequences of their choices. They must act swiftly, before it is too late, and in that pregnant silence, the inevitable looms ever closer. Desperation takes hold as panic descends, tight and uncompromising. The walls are closing in. The icy wind howls like a wounded animal, sweeping across the glacier. It carries with it the shiver of dread that sets into the bones of the climbers. Each gust penetrates their gear, chilling them to the core. Visibility has dropped to mere feet. The mountains loom like ancient sentinels, indifferent to their plight. Time blurs. Minutes stretch into an eternity. The storm continues its relentless assault. Snow falls heavy and dense, blanketing everything in a harsh white shroud. The climbers huddle together, bodies pressed as close as possible, seeking warmth in shared breath, but warmth eludes them. Nearby, one of the climbers, Mark, grows more frantic. His fingers tremble as he clutches the rope, knuckles stark white against the freezing air. The anchor point seems far too distant now. He tries to shout, but the wind swallows his voice, rendering his words into a whisper absorbed by the storm. Eyes dart around, searching for something, anything that resembles hope. Their once solid plans to coordinate a rescue feel as distant as the summits lost in the swirling snow. They understand their isolation more deeply now, the encroaching realization that the mountain is not just a challenge, but a formidable adversary. The sound of a snap, a rope fraying under stress, sends a jolt through their ranks. Mark tightens his grip, retreating inward, the primal fear of losing a teammate clawing at his throat. The rope is an umbilical cord to survival, and with each passing moment, it seems to weaken. In the center of the group, Fiona shivers, not just from the cold, but from the growing anxiety that pulses through her. She attempts to rally her thoughts, to articulate a plan, yet every suggestion feels futile, lost in the cacophony of wind and swirling snow. She looks into the eyes of her companions. They share the same thin veil of desperation. The sky looms, a heavy grey void. The world outside their huddle is both wild and dark. Time drags, the clock hands turning slowly in their minds. They can hardly distinguish past from present. How long have they been stranded? Suddenly Mark's breath catches. He gestures toward the edge of their shelter, where a flicker of movement persists. A slight figure, suspended on the ridge above, is barely visible. It's Liam, the last climber still clinging to the rock face, struggling to maintain his grip. "Can you hear me, Liam?" Fiona shouts, bracing against the wind, her voice hoarse with apprehension. The silence that follows stretches out painfully. Liam does not respond. He remains suspended, caught in a tableau of struggle and desperation. With every moment, the surface tension of their situation changes, becoming dense with panic and uncertainty. They must make a decision. They must act. But the storm rages on, forbidding any rational thought. Mark steps forward, driven by urgency. He knows they should send a line, but the winds howl back, warning against the risk of an errant movement. His anxious mind races. With trembling hands, he begins to secure the rope, twisting it around the anchor. The knot feels defiant against the elements, yet it offers little comfort against the impending dread of failure. "Wait," Fiona whispers, an edge of fear in her voice. "We need to come up with a plan." But Mark is already moving. The urgency overrides caution. The desperation to save a teammate outweighs the weight of reason. He shouts out, again a raw plea against the roaring tempest. More snow falls, heavy and unforgiving. It blurs the sight, blinding them to the tangled rope and their own fraught movements. They know the risk, yet the thought of abandonment propels them into action. Their minds teeter on the brink of a precipice, life or death. The moment hangs thick, heavy with unspoken words. What if they make the wrong choice? They are racing against the inevitable now, each heartbeat a countdown echoing in the silence that follows their decisions. Yet Mark clings to hope, a foreign notion in this atmosphere so saturated with despair. The storm's fury intensifies, a reminder of their limitations. An unrelenting chase for survival courses through their veins. They can hear the howling winds below, a reminder that nature is indifferent, relentless. They lower the rope. It unfurls into the abyss, hanging in the void like a lifeline thrown into darkness. Mark watches with bated breath, heart hammering. The end of the rope vanishes into the snowy haze where Liam hangs precariously. When they check for movement, Liam's figure sways, but not towards the rope. He is slipping. Gravity beckons with a cold caress. "Liam!" The collective voice rises over the wind. A wild hope unfurls within their chests, but it comes crashing down almost instantly. The moments stretch thin, weighted with fear as they wait for any sign of response that doesn't come. The light in the gloomy atmosphere is muted, casting an unsettling glow over their frantic efforts. As Mark's resolve falters, guilt gnaws at him. He had chosen action over caution, and now... A sudden gust flares, enveloping everything in a furious whiteout. They can no longer see Liam or the rope, just a deafening silence that envelops them. Panic surges as the storm howls, clamoring for their attention. Fiona stares into the void, a growing sense of despair wrapping around her like a vice. The moments pass. Loneliness creeps in, pressing its cold fingers against her heart. The insurmountable weight of their choices presses heavily downwards. The screaming wind stirs thoughts of what might happen next. Desperation leads them toward rash conclusions. Dehydration, exhaustion, the bitter taste of fear coats their throats. Mark breaks the fragile stillness. "We have to get him down." His voice cuts through the storm, a desperate whisper against the chaos. But how? Shivers run down their spines as the storm rages on. Each moment spills into the next, like sand through an hourglass. The storm seems to mock their urgency, as if time itself is conspiring against them. With jaws clenched, they confront the bleak truth. Every second counts, and they spiral deeper into a realm of panic. Their minds race, navigating the thin line between hope and despair. As the winds howl louder, drowning out their fears, it becomes evident that something must give way. A decision has to be made. Just then, a sudden silence falls, like the eye of the storm. In that chilling pause, a single thought crystallizes amidst the frantic noise. They must face the consequences of their choices. They must act swiftly, before it is too late. And in that pregnant silence, the inevitable looms ever closer. Desperation takes hold as panic descends, tight and uncompromising. The walls are closing in. Chapter 8. The Fight for Survival. The ice-laden rock faces loom above them, a stark reminder of their isolation. Wind howls like a distant, sorrowful lament. It cuts through clothing, piercing the skin beneath. Each breath becomes a small battle, the air sharp and biting in their lungs. The cold is relentless. Temperatures plummet to -40, freezing everything in its grasp. The ink in their journals, their hopes, their will to survive. They huddle together, weary bodies pressed close for warmth, each movement causing a rustle against the fabric of their jackets, sounds amplified in the profound silence around them. Food supplies dwindle, rations grow smaller by the day. They scrape the last of the hardtack from the tin, chewing slowly, each bite a testament to their desperation. Their stomachs protest, hollow echoes reverberating in the stillness. The gnawing hunger becomes a constant companion, gnashing its teeth at their resolve. A plan begins to form, a probability greater than the bleakness of their situation. They gather to discuss their next move, each word spoken a reminder of their grim state. They decide they must attempt a rescue, a chance to survive, or a step toward their demise. The others nod, but their faces are masks of dread. They know the risks. The precarious ice holds an awful beauty, glistening under the weak sunlight. One misstep could lead to a fatal fall, a lonely descent into nothingness. Yet they are left with little choice. They strap their gear on, heavy boots crunch against the frozen ground. The movement is deliberate but heavy with uncertainty. Each climber takes one last look at the meager supplies, knowing they might not return. With the first shift in direction, they feel the bite of the wind intensify. It whips around them, a fierce reminder of the stakes at hand. Their gloved hands grip the ropes tightly, fingers trembling from the cold. The ascent begins slowly. Each step is strategic. The rock, underfoot, often coated in a sheer glaze of ice. They navigate cautiously, relying on the scant knowledge they possess. The sweat from their exertion quickly freezes on their brows, creating a superficial layer of ice that traps body heat inside their garments. They pull themselves up, inch by inch, hearts pounding against rib cages, every pulse echoing the desperate rhythm of survival. They work as a team, focusing on the rhythm of their breaths. Out here, everything is a measure of willpower. Shadows stretch across the snow like tendrils reaching out to grasp their sanity. The air grows thicker with uncertainty. An oppressive weight hangs over them. The struggle against nature feels like an ancient primal test. They are both conquerors and captives in this stark wilderness. As they approach a ledge, exhaustion begins to set in. Muscles scream for reprieve, but there is no time for weakness. The knowledge of their dwindling food impacts their minds. Thoughts of warmth and shelter loom large, haunting images that push them forward. Then, a sudden crack echoes through the icy silence. The ground underfoot trembles slightly. Panic flares momentarily, adrenaline surging as they rush to find respite. The ice has begun to shift, an ominous harbinger of what is to come. They huddle closer together, uncertainty swirling as they realize the gravity of their situation. Their breaths synchronize in the cold, visible puffs of steam disappearing into the frigid air. Time feels suspended, the awareness of danger thickening the air. They understand the fragility of their lives. One miscalculation could spell their end. But they press on. They choose their next moves carefully, each member of the group focusing on their surroundings. Commitment outweighs the fear. They dare not dwell on what lies beneath. As they scale higher, they must push past the limits of their endurance and the gnawing terror trying to take hold. With the wind howling louder now, they arrive at a small, snow-dusted plateau. From here, they can glimpse the valley below. The sight is breathtaking, yet bittersweet, a reminder of home and the safety that lies beyond these cruel mountains. But the clouds gather ominously. Darkness looms above. A storm begins its slow descent, clouding the sunlight and swallowing the warmth they fought so hard to hold on to. With each passing minute, their surroundings grow more hostile. They grip the fraying ropes as raindrops turn to icy pellets, assaulting their bodies with a merciless force. Metal equipment begins to freeze in their hands, the harsh contact a shocking reminder of their plight. They press on, step by step, towards what they hope is salvation. But as the storm mounts, biting winds whip against their skin, stinging like a swarm of needles. The need for warmth grows more insistent. Hope teeters on the edge alongside their precarious footing. And in those moments, They grasp the preciousness of survival. With every movement, every careful step, they face the stark reality that they are helpless against nature's indifference. They can only proceed, battling not just the landscape, but the encroaching dread gnawing at their minds. Their hearts quicken as they finally spot what might be shelter, a small overhang, barely visible through the torrent of icy rain. Weakness drapes over them like a heavy blanket, threatening to drag them into the abyss. As they reach the modest haven, a sense of safety flickers, fragile but bright. They huddle beneath the rock face, bodies shaking from the intensity of the effort and immersed in the icy chill. But as they cling to one another in the cramped space, a realization sinks in. The storm is only beginning, a larger threat looming just beyond the threshold. The fight for survival is far from over. Shadows encroach, and the harsh grip of nature holds them tightly. They must prepare for what lies ahead, for their desperate bid for survival takes a turn no one could predict. Will they find the strength to endure, or will the storm claim them one by one? The winds scream in anticipation, and their fight, one against nature, against the elements, is just beginning. Chapter 9. The Final Struggle. The biting wind howls through the jagged crags of the mountain. Each gust carries with it the weight of despair. The climbers huddle against the unforgiving rock face, their breaths visible in the frigid air. It is late afternoon on the north face, and shadows stretch like dark fingers across the snow. At this elevated altitude, the cold dances upon their exposed skin, a relentless reminder of their vulnerability. The air thins, each inhale demanding more effort than the last. They measure their breath like a precious resource, knowing it might be one of the last pieces of life they can afford. John and Marie exchange glances, understanding the gravity of their situation without words. They can sense the frost creeping into their bones. The temperature has plummeted, the mercury in the thermometer long since frozen. The struggle to maintain warmth becomes a battle of its own. Snow begins to fall, soft at first, then heavy with an urgency that foreshadows a storm. As it blankets the rocky terrain, the white powder conceals the jagged edges that have become so familiar. Each flake feels like an icy dagger, adding weight to their already burdened bodies. The supplies they carried are dwindling. John rummages through their pack, finding only remnants of what once sustained them. A meager ration of energy bars, half a canteen of water. Desperation knots in his stomach as he realizes how poorly they had prepared for this relentless exposure. Marie watches him, the worry written all over her face. She can feel the encroaching panic, but she knows better than to voice it. Instead, she moves to gather the last of their shared warmth. They press against each other, trying to find solace amidst the bitter cold. Hours pass, slowly, distorting time under the suffocating weight of the storm. The wind rises, howling like a furious beast. Visibility shrinks as the snow quickly transforms into a blinding wall. Each flake stings their skin, a cruel reminder of their isolation in this unforgiving wilderness. Amidst this cacophony, John's mind drifts. He remembers the earlier days, filled with aspirations. The thrill of the climb, the allure of the unattainable summit seemed so close, so achievable. Now, those dreams lay buried beneath the blanket of snow and fear. Hard surfaces become blurred memories. Their hands are raw and blistered. Each movement is deliberate but labored, as if every action is pulling them further into a void of exhaustion. The joy of adventure morphs into the horror of survival. John and Marie decide they cannot remain tethered to the albatross of inaction. They push through their fatigue, driven by the dim hope that rescue may still come. They take a step toward the left, where the snow gives way to glimpses of rock. It requires a rare flicker of strength to steady their footing. The slush beneath their feet clings and pulls, as if the mountain itself wishes to reclaim them. The storm grows louder, a relentless roar that drowns their thoughts. As they climb, each step reverberates through their bodies, a painful reminder of their limits. They rely on each other, every handhold taken with caution. Blood seeps from a fresh cut on John's knuckle, but he hardly notices the pain anymore. A fracture appears in the clouds, a chance of clarity. They ascend higher, but their respite is short-lived. The wind nails them with fresh flurries, the storm trailing them like a spectre. Each gust is sharper than the last, threatening to force them back down. Marie slips, a momentary lapse. Her foot folds into the snow, and she gasps as she stumbles. She quickly regains her balance, but the slip transforms their rallying hope into a tangible fear. John reaches out, his grip firm. "Are you okay?" he asks, his voice almost lost in the wind. She nods, but the tremor in her chin betrays her confidence. The uncertainty settles in the pit of her stomach. It becomes evident that their decision to press on is a gamble with dire odds. They are winning small victories against the mountain, yet it is an unwinnable game. The belief in rescue wanes with each frigid breath, replaced by the overwhelming presence of the only adversary they cannot outmaneuver, nature itself. An ominous silence falls briefly when the wind lets up. The world outside is drowned in white, swirling chaos, but within is a singular moment. The pair grips onto the rock for dear life, eyeing the peak shimmering above the fog. But with that fleeting moment of stillness, unease seeps back in. Clouds thicken, and the sound of nature reasserts itself, foreboding and unrelenting. They continue their ascent, driven by the desperate need to escape the mountain's grasp. As they navigate a particularly treacherous outcropping, an eerie realization consumes them. The reality of their situation is glaring. The distance to safety feels immeasurable. Supplies are all but gone. With every labored step, the cold wraps tighter around them. Their limbs scream with fatigue, their minds dulled by hunger and despair. Yet they climb on, fueled by sheer will. Every rock face pulled, every held breath becomes a testament to their struggle. Suddenly, the ground shifts precariously beneath Marie's foot. A dangerous crack echoes in the silence. Time halts as they watch it widen, feeling the precarious balance of their fate tip. "Stay still," John urges, fear creeping into his voice. The shifting snow gives way beneath them, a treacherous reminder of the depths below. Heart racing, they cling to one another. The weight of uncertainty hangs in the frigid air. The idea of falling into the unknown stings worse than the biting wind. The threat of everything they have, fought for swirling away, fills the void. For a fleeting moment, they wonder if this was their end. Above them, the clouds swirl dangerously, ominous and heavy. The ascent continues to warp, challenging their endurance. Each move becomes increasingly desperate, yet they press forward, teetering on the edge of fate. As they begin to push higher, the realization dawns cold upon their shoulders. The mountain is more relentless than they anticipated. The struggle intensifies as the storm rages, threatening to consume them whole. And in that moment, time and space begin to blur, steeped in a chilling and foreboding truth. Their strength may not be enough against the forces that conspire above. Chapter 10. The Aftermath. As the storm finally loses its ferocity, sunlight filters weakly through the swirling mist. The world feels changed. The biting winds, once a fierce adversary, now recede into an unsettling calm. The climbers emerge from their shelters, each step heavy with the knowledge of what has been lost. The air is frigid, stinging against their faces like tiny arrows. Visibility remains low, the landscape an unrecognizable blend of snow and rock. They survey the scene, eyes scanning for signs of life. An emptiness presses in, a cavernous silence that feels almost oppressive. Each breath is a reminder of the cold. It seeps through their clothing, biting into skin that has grown softer against the relentless winter. They already bear the weight of exhaustion, and now it feels like a physical entity, a relentless burden clinging to their bones. One climber, his hands stiff from the chill, brushes the snow off his pack. He recalls the fleeting moments before the storm, the camaraderie shared among the team, the laughter echoing against the granite face of the mountain. Those memories twist painfully in his chest as he thinks of the one who is not with them. The snow, once a majestic blanket, transforms into a stark tapestry of grief. Each patch of ice glimmers with the stark reality of their loss. The mountain has claimed one of their own. Bitter anguish fills the air as they ponder the meal they will never share, the stories left untold. They gather at a makeshift circle, the chilling wind swirling around them, carrying away unspoken words. It is hard to form thoughts at this altitude, where the air is thin and the heart weighs heavy. Some look at the ground, finding comfort in studying the patterns of frost. Others stare vacantly into the distance, trying to grasp the enormity of their survival. The weight of survivors' guilt looms large, thickening the air. Each of them wonders why they were chosen to endure this storm, while their comrade was lost. The murmur of what-ifs hangs heavily. A voice echoes in their minds. Could I have done something differently? Their immediate future is uncertain. The path ahead is barely visible, obscured under layers of fresh snowfall. They will need to navigate back, and yet they know the journey will forever be altered. This climb, intended to forge unity and challenge their limits, had become something else entirely. The emotional toll of the ordeal lingers like a spectre in the corners of their minds. Treacherous terrain still lies ahead, both physically and mentally. Each footfall is a reminder of fragility, each gust of wind a testament to nature's indifference. The climbers begin their descent. Snow crunches beneath their boots, a sound that seems too loud in the enveloping silence. There are no triumphant shouts this time, no celebratory gestures. Each step is imbued with the somber gravity of their companion's absence. Days later, when they finally return to base camp, they are met not with joyous reunion, but with the heavy eyes of waiting teams and anxious friends. The stories they tell are muted, weighed down by the sorrow of their shared experiences. Barriers are formed. Some struggle to find the right words, while others retreat into silence. The impact of their ordeal reverberates through the mountaineering community. Those who had witnessed the climb from afar absorb the news with heavy hearts. The climber's tale becomes one of caution, discussed in somber whispers around campfires and in ski lodges. The mountain they once revered now looms ominously in the distance, a reminder of both beauty and peril. Risk management discussions emerge, debates about safety protocols, withdrawal plans, and predictions of weather patterns. Climbers will learn about the signs of danger, about recognizing when to turn back. Weeks pass, and the psychological scars deepen. Some victims of survivors' guilt take to solitude, retreating into themselves, grappling with shadows of regret, while others pour their emotions into writing or speaking. The once unified bond of exhilaration has transformed into something unnameable, an undercurrent of shared trauma. In the aftermath, those who lived through the storm begin to feel the intrinsic weight of memory. It whispers to them at night, reminding them of soundless echoes, lost laughter, and moments of perfect stillness. When they close their eyes, they only see the face of the one who didn't make it back. The analysis of the climb unfolds in conference halls as experts dissect what went wrong. Determination and resilience are praised, yet they cannot overshadow the gravity of the experience. A grim understanding settles in. Nature cannot be tamed, and there are consequences for underestimating its power. Life outside the mountains carries on. For the surviving climbers, it feels as though they have stepped into an alternate reality. Friends gather and speak of mundane events while their hearts are heavy. They nod, offer smiles that do not reach their eyes, wear the masks of normalcy. But the bond of shared experience isolates them, like an invisible barrier. Months after the ascent, feelings of emptiness resurface unexpectedly. A thunderous storm rattles the windows of their homes, forcing the survivors into retreat. They remember the roaring winds echoing from the mountain face. Each rumble of thunder sparks primal instincts of fear as they are thrust back into chilling memories. At times, they think back to the warning signs missed, the conception of certainty that lulled them into complacency. It feels laughable now. How bravely they had approached the mountain, full of enthusiasm and hope. Yet with reflection comes healing. They begin to form connections with other climbers impacted by loss. Shared experiences foster a profound understanding, bridging the gaps created by trauma. They learn to share their stories, not as a means of seeking pity, but as acts of bravery against the ghost of grief. By acknowledging the reality of loss, they begin to reclaim a sense of agency. It is a slow, deliberate process, punctuated by moments of raw honesty. Healing becomes intertwined with remembrance. They honor their fallen climber, ensuring that the lessons learned are not forgotten. But still, the mountain looms as an undying presence in their lives. There is a compulsion to return. Each survivor feels the pull of the North Face, the desire to confront their fears, to stand once more at the edge of the precipice, a dance with uncertainty. As they gear up for another trip, the tension in the air is palpable. They are haunted yet hopeful, confronted with the duality of nature's beauty and cruelty. Each piece of equipment holds a weight of untold stories. It's a bittersweet anticipation, layered with love for the sport and respect for its risks. And so, under the watchful gaze of the mountain, long after the storm has passed, the climbers gather their strength. They understand that the lessons learned have indelibly shaped them. The act of climbing now carries an extra burden, one that demands reverence for both the triumphs and tragedies. With heavy hearts and determined spirits they lace, their boots tighter than ever. They move forward, but not without acknowledgement of what they've lost. The weight of remembrance balances on the precipice between passion and peril, an intricate dance with a mountain that asks not for understanding, but an embrace of its reality. As they step over the threshold of base camp once more, they brace themselves for the journey ahead. The whispers of the past mingle with the breath of the mountain, an ever-present reminder. Nature is both an ally and an adversary, and the climb has only just begun. The air feels different, charged with an energy that tells them something is imminent. As they prepare to ascend once more, the weather shifts violently, hinting at another challenge looming just on the horizon. A storm brews in the distance, calling them back to face their greatest fears once more. The weight of the past clings heavily, like the ever-present chill of the stark mountains. The events of 1936 linger in the shadows of mountaineering history, a solemn memory etched in the consciousness of those who dare to tread the treacherous paths of nature's might. In the annals of climbers and adventurers, the account of the North Face exposure serves as a chilling testament to the harrowing relationship between humanity and the unforgiving wilderness. It is a story not just of physical ascent, but of the overwhelming forces that can so swiftly topple the bravest of spirits. Each climber's struggle, recorded in time, echoes the grim reality that nature holds dominion over life and death. What began as an ambitious venture became a lesson in humility, an undying reminder that the mountains, in all their breathtaking beauty, are often shrouded in peril. The temperature dropped to brutal extremes, each breath crystallizing in the icy air, the flesh of fingertips stinging from the relentless cold. The struggle for survival becomes palpable, visceral, making one acutely aware of their mortality against such a formidable backdrop. The chilling reality remains that this tale is not merely about the struggle against the elements, but an enduring reflection on our fragile existence. The climber's journey, their aspirations, stripped bare against nature, forces a contemplation of our own vulnerabilities. It reminds us of the impermanence of life and the relentless slate of time, in the face of nature's inexorable power. Lessons unraveled in the howling winds of that fateful climb have echoed throughout the decades, molding the very fabric of climbing protocols and safety measures embraced by future generations. The haunting legacy of the North Face exposure has shaped not only techniques, but instilled a profound respect for the wild's tumultuous spirit. This account lingers as a chilling invitation to those who seek the heights, warning that ambition must always be tempered with caution. The mountains beckon, yet they defend themselves fiercely against all who dare to overreach. If this history has left its mark on you, leave a like. It tells me you survived the journey. Drop a comment below, I want to know what part of this story haunted you most, and prepare yourself for the next descents into darkness as we delve into another tale, one where the twist of fate transforms the mightiest of intentions into the harshest of realities.